Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13 of the. That's not what it's called anymore. Welcome to the technically first episode, but in all reality, 13th episode of what is now known as Accidentally Profound. Yes, my friends, my followers, my viewers, the Drew Kennington Show is dead. We are no longer going by that name. We have rebranded, re-upped, and revitalized the show. So you may be wondering, well, why did you change the name of the show? And there's a few reasons, which we'll get into, but it all kind of started when it was earlier this week, Tuesday. I was having a bit of a moment. I was, kind of in a weird spot with the show. I knew that I didn't really like the branding that I had. I thought the logo was pretty bland, and it wasn't really what I wanted the show to represent. I realized the socials they were cool, but like it kind of just felt like I was just throwing stuff up onto the socials, and like if you were to see it, you really wouldn't have any idea what the show was or what it was about, because Naomi made a great point when we were talking about it. No one knows who the fuck I am, respectfully to myself, in the greater scheme of the social media landscape. If you were on TikTok, Instagram Reels, or even just scrolling through Spotify, if you were to scroll down and see the Drew Kennington Show, you may ask yourself, who the hell is Drew Kennington and why should I care? And that'd be a valid question. And that's kind of something I realized. I was like, man, like, I want this show to be something more, something broader. And I feel like the name, The Drew Kennington Show, not only kind of puts me into a box in a way, it also doesn't really encompass what the show is about. Because I feel like with a name like that, you need some sort of previous, what word am I looking for? Like fame or notoriety for you to have your name attached to a show, and people are like, oh, wait a minute, like what's he about? So I kind of realized that. I was kind of having like an existential moment with the show, and I was trying to make it work. I was trying to make the Drew Kennington Show work. I was trying to make a new logo. I was trying to do all this stuff, and I couldn't get it, so I felt like really down and out about it all. And then I just decided, I was like, I'm gonna just completely rebrand this entire thing and go for something new. So I spent a few days tossing around names for the show, trying out different avenues of how I wanted to go about it. And I kind of settled on what I really want to focus on the show, what I really want this show and my brand, I guess, to be about. And that's like kind of insightfulness with a little bit of humor. Something where it's like a name that signals that I don't take myself all that seriously, but I also want to come on here and kind of say some profound things to my audience. But I don't want y'all to think that I'm like some guru, or that I'm preaching to you, or that I really know anything more than you guys do. I'm just kind of looking at life from a broad lens and kind of coming on here and talking about it. So I was tossing around names, tossing around ideas, and I really like the word profound. I felt like that's just like a really cool name, or not a cool name, just a cool word. I feel like it's a big word. It's a fun word. You don't hear it too often. And then I settled on the name actually kind of profound at first. That's where we were gonna go with this. And then I kind of just was like, I didn't love it. So, I'm not gonna lie to you. I asked old Chat GPT, the old AI, I was like, hey, bro, listen, here's what I got. Here's what I'm going for. What do you think? And it was like, well, brother, have you thought about accidentally profound? And I was like, actually, yeah, I have. I was just waiting for you to say it. You know what I'm saying? So, so I went with that name. I like it. I feel like it encompasses the vibe of the show we're going for here. I feel like it's a good brand. It doesn't necessarily put me in a box, so to speak, of like just a podcast. Like if I wanted to ever expand this and do something more content wise, because I have tossed around that idea of doing more stuff content-wise than just a podcast. I feel like this name allows me to do that. Whereas the Drew Kennington Show, it's like all I can really be is a podcast. So that's what we're going for. The logo is pretty tentative. I do like it. I went with, I'm sure you've seen it already. I went with like a Pacers colors to kind of tie into my indie roots, because that's another thing I kind of have been wanting to get more deep in. I want this show to kind of celebrate Indianapolis and celebrate where I'm from and celebrate the city that I'm based in. I don't want to be an Indianapolis show. There's already like plenty of those, not plenty, but there's a handful of those out there where people focus entirely on Indianapolis topics. But I want to represent, I want to put my city on the map. I feel like here in Indy, that's something we kind of lack in a way. Like I was having this conversation with Naomi in the car ride today, actually, about how Indianapolis, it has such a bad, it gets a bad rep. People think it's very boring, it's very lackluster. There's not really much going on here, and I feel like part of that is because the entertainment slash media landscape here is kind of non-existent. You there's some people that like represent in a way, but like when I think of other major cities, there's always like famous actors, famous musicians, specifically rappers, who put on for their city, who represent their city, and they bring it to like a larger scale. Think of the likes of like, I mean, Jack Harlow from Louisville. You got all the guys that come out of Detroit. Like Eminem, Big Sean, Yachty. Like those dudes are all from Michigan, and they put on for their city. I mean, Chicago is obviously its own thing. A lot of these Midwestern cities have people in the media and people in the entertainment world who represent the city, whereas Indianapolis doesn't really have that culture here yet. So if I could be a part of that, if I could grow this brand, grow this show into something, and be someone who paints Indianapolis in a better light than what it typically gets in the media sphere, then I'd say that'd be a pretty cool little gig. So from here on out, we are known as Accidentally Profound. And yeah, it's a new chapter, a new beginning, and a new era of the show. And another thing why I wanted to change the show is, this is kind of dumb, but I wanted to make stickers for the show to kind of, I guess, market the show, brand the show in a way. And if you've been around Indianapolis, there's parts of the city that there's like these, like the one I'm thinking of in particular. If you ever go to Whole Foods, there's I don't know what it is. It's this big white pipe, and it's just plastered with stickers of people's like brands or just whatever they got going on. And I've always wanted to make a sticker and put it on that big pipe, because you see it right when you walk in. And then there's also like some like stop signs and stuff for people to put stickers on the back of them. And I was always hesitant to do it with the Drew Kennington Show, because like I don't know how, like, I mean, obviously that's like kind of vandalism. So I always felt a little weird about doing that, and then taking my name and taking like my name and smacking it on, this public property, to where it's like I'm like kind of ratting myself out, like, hey, Drew Kennington did this. So there was that part. And then also just like with the name, the Drew Kennington Show, it also just kind of, I don't know, I guess I felt weird throwing my full government out there. Just, I don't know. It was odd. So, new name, new era. Still the same show. We're still going to be doing the same thing. It's just more branding, more forward thinking in a way. So that way when we grow, we can build something more here than just a podcast, I guess. So yeah, that's that. Welcome to what is now Accidentally Profound. Well, yes. So I don't even know how to transition here. I guess I could talk a little bit about my day. I had a good little Sunday day here in the great Indianapolis. My what am I gonna say here? Routine was a little different. Typically on Saturdays I go to the gym, and then Sundays are more chill. I'll eat a little breakfast, come up here, and record the show. But today I ended up going to the gym. Went to a YMCA in Greenwood, which was interesting. Never been to that one before. And one thing I'll say about Greenwood, I mean, I like it. It's cool. It's got everything you need. You know, I don't know if this would be offensive to Greenwood people, but I often refer to it as like the keystone of the South. I feel like it's a good observation. But one thing about Greenwood, man, every time I go there, it's just so funny. It's so many white people, hella white people in Greenwood. But shout out to them, man. They're cool. You know what I'm saying? They're chill people. I went to the gym, went to Sam's Club. It's always overwhelming. Hit a little Jimmy John's lick before this. You know what I'm talking about? Had a little JJ Gargantuan. I ain't playing. I'm on that macro journey, that calorie protein journey. 1,000 calories, 78 grams of protein, 5 meats in that boy, straight to the mouth. No pause. I'm gonna stand on that. So that's been my day. I've been chilling. You know, been cooling. Um, but yeah. So now we're here. Now we're recording. A little scrambly here off top. I guess we could get into a topic here since we've just been babbling for the first however long. I got a few things I want to get into today, and one of them is more laid back. One of them is more, I'll probably get angry. So we're going to start with the laid back, and that is the NBA playoffs. We are in the, I'd say, best time of the year for basketball. You know, I mean, if you think about March Madness, we're just coming off the heels of that. And now we got NBA playoff hoops to guide us through the beginning of summer here. And with my Indiana Pacers not being in the NBA playoffs this year, I will be honest, I'm not as tapped in as I have been in the past previous years. But one thing that I was kind of tapped into, and I feel like I bought into a little bit of propaganda, a little bit of hype. And it wasn't just me, it was a large majority of the NBA universe. I bought into the Charlotte Hornets hype. I deadass thought the Charlotte Hornets were going to be the 2025 Indiana Pacers. I was looking at the metrics, you know what I mean? They were 28-10 since January. They were the second in net rating, second in offensive rating, sixth defensive rating. I was like, oh my god, these boys are about to make a run. I was talking to Naomi about it. I literally said to her, I said, the Charlotte Hornets, if they get the 8 seed in the playoffs, they might take the Detroit Pistons to 7 games. That's how high I was on this Charlotte Hornets team after that Miami Heat win, which, when you take a step back and look at it, they didn't have Bam Adebayo, 83-point Bam. So maybe it was a little short-sighted in a way, but I was fully bought in on the Charlotte Hornets potentially making a second round playoff appearance, and then they went up against the Orlando Magic and got their shit kicked in. Which, to be fair, the Orlando Magic are the better team. The Orlando Magic should have won that game because, they're just look at their roster, they're stacked. But I was bought into the hype. I really thought the Hornets were going to do it, and they did not. But the rest of the playoffs as a whole, I'm not super tapped into the first round, if I'm being completely honest. There's a few matchups that kind of like show up on the blip on the Drew Kennington radar of like, oh, we might want to tap into that. The Knicks Hawks. I think that'll be a fun series. The Rockets Lakers is going to be like just a wild series. You got Luka and Austin Reeves, who I don't even know if they're going to play in the first round. And then you got Kevin Durant missing the first game. So it's basically just LeBron and friends out there trying their best to beat a pretty loaded Houston Rockets team when healthy, that is. But, I mean, game one, Luke Kennard, white boy of the week, in my opinion. What do you have, like 27, 28 points? And that's the thing about the playoffs is you never know who's really going to make that jump, who's going to become that player that really turns it up to 10. Like you think of for the Pacers, Andrew Nembhard. For the past 2 seasons, he's been this insane playoff riser. Throughout the regular season, he's not a bad player. He's a very serviceable starter. He's good. But when playoffs come around, he turns it up another notch, and he's that guy. And you think of it like Jamal Murray. Like Jamal Murray's good. Did he make an All Star team? I don't know if he might have been an All Star before, but every playoffs, bro, I swear I watched some Nuggets games, and he looks like Kobe Bryant out there. He moves in a way that I didn't know he could move. Like, and it's just every playoffs he does it. So, I mean, is Luke Kennard going to be the newest edition of playoff risers? Or was that just a fluke game because, he, I don't know, turned up in LA? So we'll see on that. But all the other first round matchups, I'm not really too big on, if I'm being honest. The first round's always kind of boring because you got to kind of weed out the shitty teams to get the juggernauts going against each other. The second round is when things pick up. We're going to have, what would it be? It'd be Knicks versus Celtics. That's going to be a crazy one. Pistons versus Cavs or Raptors. Probably the Cavs. And you know what I mean? Coming out of the West, you got Thunder, Nuggets, Spurs. It's going to be a very fun, very eventful playoffs. And I'm here for it. I'm sad. Even though I haven't been tapped into the NBA season at all, I'm in it. I'm here for this NBA slate of basketball. But if I had to put on what would my dream NBA Finals matchup be? Like, if I had to pick two teams that, if they were in the NBA Finals, I'd be sat for all 7 games no matter what. Honestly, out of the East, I really don't care. Anybody but the Knicks. I hate the Knicks. Low-key Detroit. I'd like to see Detroit do it. Because 2 years ago, man, they won 27. Or no, they lost 27 or 28 games in a row. And in 2 years, you go from that to the number 1 team in the East. Granted, it's because the Pacers weren't in. If the Pacers were in it, they'd be the number 1 seed. We all know this. This is common knowledge. It's still cool to see a team go from ass to an upper echelon Eastern Conference team in just a short matter of time. So I'd probably say Detroit, and out of the West, definitely San Antonio, because they're kind of in that same ballpark of Detroit, where it's like they were kind of ass, and now they're like, they won 60 games this year. Don't want to see the Thunder. My nightmare finals matchup would be Thunder Knicks. If that's the finals, I'm not watching that, respectfully. I will not watch a single game. If the Thunder and the Knicks go to the NBA Finals, I'm not watching. Because I have no one to root for. I can't pull for the Thunder. They just won the chip. They beat us in 7. They would have lost, but Tyrese went down. Whatever. Still a little sore stain on that. And then the Knicks are the Knicks. And also, kind of talking about that Game 7, Tyrese Halliburton going down. I feel so bad for Tyrese Halliburton, bro. Like, Game 7, NBA Finals, you've willed your team to the playoffs with insane comebacks and every single buzzer-beating shots, game winners in every single series. Tear your Achilles in what is the biggest game of your entire life. You're dealing with a recovery, all that. Then you get shingles, bro, which is already in itself bad enough. He's gained weight, which you would expect from somebody who doesn't play basketball, but now his face is swollen. He's missing an eyebrow. Everyone's calling him Halliburger. And it seems like the vibe, in a way, has kind of shifted on him. Like, I feel like at first, with the, going down in Game 7, everybody was watching that game. Everybody in the NBA universe was watching that game. So he was kind of this NBA darling, in a way, where it was like, man, oh man, I can't wait for Tyrese to come back. When he comes back, he's doing my demon timing. Like, that was the kind of energy and the kind of conversations we were having about Tyrese Halliburton after the NBA Finals. But now that he's gained all this weight, it's like people are hating on him again. They're calling him fat. They're saying he's washed. They're saying all these mean things about him. And it just kind of sucks. But I will say it does kind of add a new element to his return coming back next year, because like coming off an Achilles injury, it's like it's one thing. But when you have the entire media landscape saying you're fat and overweight and calling you Halliburger, like, bro, that's a whole other fire lit underneath you to come back and just dominate the Eastern Conference. We saw what happened when people called him overrated, which I was talking to Naomi about it, and when you put it into the perspective of that was his coworkers that made that list that called him overrated kind of insane. Like imagine you go to work on Monday, your corporate job or whatever you go into, and the bosses are like, "Hey guys, we did a poll over the weekend of all the employees here at the job, and it's come out that yeah, you, Drew Kennington, whoever, are actually the most overrated here at the company." I'd be like, "What the fuck? Like, why y'all got beef with me like that, bro?" So yeah, it's been a tough run for old Tyrese Halliburton, but the bounce back will be insane, and I will be here for it. I hope to be in attendance for the home opener of the Indiana Pacers because oh my goodness, brother, that is going to be one of the most electric environments to be in. I was at the NBA Finals games, no flex, but that first game back, new team, potentially new cornerstone of the franchise, maybe question mark if we get a top 3 pick. And you got Tyrese back, we got Zubac back healthy, we got Johnny Furphy back healthy, we got the whole team back healthy. It's going to be a crazy, crazy season, and I can't wait. But we have to get through the NBA playoffs first. So we'll see how that goes. We'll keep a pin on it here in this show because that is one thing about the NBA playoffs that is kind of wild when you think about it. It's 2 months long. The NBA playoffs is 2 months of basketball, and I guess I never really kind of realized that until my team was in it. Like all the way to the end last year. I was like, bro, this is 2 months of anxiety if your team is like like an actual contender. If you're like a Toronto Raptors or one of these like more middle of the pack teams like 76ers, stuff like that, you got like a week or two of stress before your team gets bounced in the first round. But if you're like a Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, Thunder, Nuggets, Spurs, you're in for 2 months of stress and anxiety. So to all those fans out there of those organizations, I wish you a chill and maybe not super stressful 2 months of NBA hoops. Unless you're a Knicks fan, I hope you don't even have 2 months. I hope you have 3 weeks tops of stressful hoops, and then you're into Cancun. So I guess that's all I have on NBA hoops. And this next topic here, like I said, we might get a little upset. We might go on for a minute with this one. I'm not really sure. But we're gonna talk a little politics. I'll be honest. I haven't spoke on politics in a while. I kind of veered away from the political landscape of things because frankly, like I said, it just kind of got to a point where I wasn't having fun talking politics. I'd post the political clips on my socials. It'd stir up a lot of interesting conversation in the comments. And frankly, that wasn't something that I was wanting to, I guess, cultivate here on this show. But something has been happening lately, and I feel like I need to kind of just voice how I feel about it because I guess that's what this show is. This show is a medium for me to voice how I feel about certain things. And I'll be honest, when I first started doing this show, I wanted to do a segment on how the Republican Party has kind of co-opted, I guess, in a way, the Christian church, and how, in my opinion, they're making a bit of a mockery of it. But I still wasn't super comfortable with just doing the podcast in general, and I didn't want to come on here and basically not talk shit, but ramble on about the current administration and their whatever they're doing with the Christian church, and just kind of, I guess, maybe potentially offend some of my viewers. But I feel like we're at a point now, we're enough episodes deep into this show that I don't know, I feel like maybe we could talk our shit and just see where it goes. So like for me it all started, what really like frustrated me from the jump, that kind of like lit this fire within me. It wasn't really the whole Trump like saying he was a Christian and kind of uh, injecting God and stuff like that into his speeches and his rallies. Because for me personally, I feel like if you just look at it from an objective angle, that dude's clearly not a Christian, and it was very clearly just a way to bolster up his voter base, bolster up his approval rating. Um, One thing I will say about Trump that I feel like is, kind of like a not a tip of the hat, but like I can respect his game, I guess, in a way, is how he's really figured out who his who his voter base is. He knows who his voter base is, and he knows what to say and how to say it to pander to them to get them like fired up. And I think he just kind of realized that a lot of his voter base was more rural focused white Americans, and a lot of people in rural areas and stuff like that are very, they're very Christian, they're very religious heavy and stuff like that. So he injected that type of speech into his rallies, into his campaign trail, and people ate it up. So like I said, I never bought into it. I never really believed it. But I mean, if you did, if you think that that's what's going on, you know what? More power to you. To each their own. But what really like lit up the like put off what is it? The sound of the alarms for me was when the whole Charlie Kirk thing happened. The not only were they immediately blaming the left for the assassination. Like I don't even remember who it was, but there was some lady who came out, and as soon as it happened, bro, she was talking about some like this is the Democrats, the liberals did this, blah blah blah, and I was like, what? And then their alignment with Turning Point USA and the whole thing around like Erica Kirk, and then the whole Israel thing. It was like, now what? Time out, time out. What are we doing? What's happening here? It was like, what is going on? This has went from just like some dude saying he's Christian, and then like all of his cronies being like, yeah, shout out God, to like you're infiltrating a whole religious sector, and I just feel like personally it's painting it in a bad light. It's attaching a you're bringing the us versus them aspect of politics, and you're injecting it into a religion, into a spiritual practice. And I feel like that's just not how politics should be. But again, I didn't want to do a whole segment on that because I didn't want to piss people off. And then he comes out this week, bro, and he does the thing where he does the AI generated picture of him depicted as Jesus. And it's like, how more blatantly obvious can it get that this guy is very clearly not a Christian? He does not give two shits about the Christian church. The only reason he's doing any of this is to pander to the Christian voters and boost his approval rating. Like, who in their right mind would think that that's a good idea? Who would think, I'm out here putting us into this conflict in the Middle East, which, oh yeah, by the way, I said we weren't going to do. I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put my face over Jesus Christ and pretend like I am some sort of martyr. I am some sort of savior. It's an absolutely wild thing to do. And it's even wilder to say that our president is doing that. Like, just think. Just take a step back and think. Imagine if Barack Obama did that. Imagine if Joe Biden did that. Do you know the outrage that would be pouring over our entire country? Do you know how fired every single Republican senator who's active on X or whatever would be all over it, condemning the Biden administration, condemning Obama, saying how it's an insult to Christianity as a whole, to paint yourself in that light and act like you are basically what is the Christian martyr. But Trump does it, and there's still people out there who kind of don't really seem to care. It's like, at what point do we have to realize that this man, at the end of the day, is just another politician. He's done this whole shtick, and I mean, for a while it's worked, where he promotes himself as a kind of like an anti-politician in a way. The whole thing about a lot of people's positive things they say about Trump is that he's not your typical politician. He doesn't speak like most politicians. He says what he's gonna do. He says it with his chest, and he does it unapologetically. And he really cares about America and for the American people. Oh, he's a billionaire, man. He could be sitting on an island somewhere, on a beach somewhere, just relishing in all of his money. But he put all that away, all that aside, to come and fight for the American people. It's like, no, bro. Like, I get it. I get that that's the propaganda he's pushing onto you, but I feel like now more than ever, it's the veil's been lifted. You know what I mean? The mask has been ripped off, and it's like, this guy is just another lying politician. We weren't supposed to get into Middle Eastern conflicts. We were supposed to end all these wars, and now we're in a war with Iran, and it's fucking up the American economy. The Strait of Hormuz. It seems like every other day I'm getting notifications like, oh, it's open, oh, it's closed, oh, America did the. It's like, you're doing things you said you weren't going to do. You're killing school children in the Middle East with bombs that are you're launching in basically for a war that has really nothing to do with us. And they're trying to sell it to us with this like bullshit propaganda. And then they go on this whole Christian spiel that I've just been going on about for the last 10 minutes, and it's like, now they're just it's just so frustrating because they're just lying to us. They're lying to us repeatedly, and it's all under this guise of like being for the American people, and it's worked to a pretty great extent. I mean, he won the election twice. Like, it's worked. But it's at the point now where it's like, how much longer can we be blinded by the fact that this guy is clearly just lying and clearly doing whatever it is that he wants, and just disrespecting the American people and large sectors of the religious, sphere of the American population. And it's like, how much longer are we going to let this go on? And it's been very interesting to see, because you have a lot of these people who supported him, especially in the media. You think of like the Joe Rogans, or like all these like podcasters who have these large platforms, who I wouldn't necessarily say like were right leaning or super heavy into his camp, but in that past election they aligned with him because of the things he was saying, the things he was saying he was going to do for the American people. And now all of them are jumping ship, and it's because he's lying, and we're finally realizing that this guy is just lying to us. And then now, like, I see whatever he did recently with the whole psychedelic reform, where he's basically wanting to allow them to be used for therapeutic. I didn't really read too much on it, but I just saw the headline, and he invited like Joe Rogan to the White House for the signing of this bill. And it's just like, this is so like, do we really think he cares about that at all? Do we really think in his core values he cares at all about that? Or it's just the fact that Joe Rogan's been going on his podcast basically kind of talking shit about Trump, being like, what is this guy doing? And now all of a sudden he's like, I know how to get him back on my side. Psychedelic reforms. And then he invites him to the White House, and then now it's just this whole ordeal where it's like, we're all hunky-dory again. So it's just a really, really weird time in American politics. And it really sucks because the people on the right who are so indoctrined and ingrained and bought into this whole MAGA movement or whatever, it's because of the whole us versus them and the whole team aspect of politics that it has now become. It's very difficult for people to kind of like take a step back and be like, wow, I was wrong about this guy. The true colors are coming out, and he really is just another another dirty politician, another crooked politician. Because for them, condemning what he's doing is like in a way losing. It's become a thing where you don't think objectively about politics anymore. You become so emotionally attached to your political representation that you kind of just have to blindly follow and blindly nod your head and convince yourself of all these things that they're doing that like most American people are not for. The American people are not for wars in the Middle East. The American people are not for bombing innocent civilians. We're not for aligning ourselves with Israel and whatever the fuck they're doing over there. You know, but because people are so emotionally attached to this party affiliation, they have to then convince themselves that what it is that's happening is good for the American people. And then I mean, I'll be honest, I was this morning I was on Truth Social because he posts I didn't see it on his Truth Social account. So I don't know if it's 100% true that it happened, but it seems like it is, and it seems like he probably deleted it. But then, so first he does the whole Jesus thing, and then he posts this video of an AI version of him rubbing blood on his forehead, speaking in tongues, and like the blood drips down and reveals like a cross on his forehead, like when I think it's Catholics do it, like the whole I think it's like Ash Wednesday thing where they have like the ash cross on their forehead. And it's just like, what the fuck are we doing? So I go on his Truth Social to like see if this is true, and I'm seeing all this like propaganda video bullshit that he's pumping out on his Truth Social, and it's like, what is happening? What is going on? Like, it's so dystopian, it's so stupid, and it's just a shame that that is what the American government has become. Where we're like this, like almost like this laughing stock on the worldwide scale. Like, we went from, like, I'm not saying we've always been the good guys in a way. Like, we have been sold that we're the good guys, but when you really think about all these kind of wars we get into, we're really the bullies of the world. But like, I guess at least the politicians were a little better about like acting like they were, good people. But now it's like he's so outwardly just crooked and so outwardly self-absorbed that we're basically like the way we view Putin is just how I imagine the rest of the world views Donald Trump. Like the way that we view Benjamin Netanyahu. It's like, or whoever the leader of China, or Kim Jong Un. You view them as these like loose cannon, tyrannical bullies, and it's like that's kind of just what we've created here. And then now the propaganda campaigns that are now being posted all over his social medias, and it's just like further reinforcing that we're just man, I don't even know. It's so frustrating, and I don't like it. And I'm not coming on here to say like, oh well, we need more liberals, because like they're just as crooked, they're just as, I mean, you hear all this shit about all the fraud coming out that they're engaging in. So it's like they're just as bad, they're just as crooked, they're just the other side of the coin. But it's like, it's what makes this worse is because so many people are bought in thinking that this guy is like the savior, and some people even think he's like the greatest president ever. It's like, no, dude, he's a fucking clown, and he's made us a clown show. So that's very unfortunate, and I hope that maybe people will kind of wake up to the fact that, yeah, this shit ain't all sunshine and rainbows. There's still some corrupt, there's still some bad juju going on in the Oval Office, and I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see what happens. All I hope is that somehow, some way we can figure out this whole Iran situation, because I'm tired of people having to die for just some bullshit, and Americans getting sent overseas, and all this stuff. And I don't want to sound like a hippie, but like, man, can we just have a little bit of peace? Can we just have a little bit of like calmness, and can we just kind of go back to like not fucking with the Iranian? I don't know. It's a shame. It's a damn shame. And then like, yeah, man. Yeah. I think that's all I really want to say on that. I could probably say some more, but yeah, it's unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. So we're gonna change the vibe up. We're gonna switch it up here. We're gonna pivot from yip yapping about the Trump administration, and we're gonna get into some weekly observations, folks. I will be honest, I don't have too much to delve into this week, because something I do when it comes to my weekly observations, um, it's usually like when I have like a clear mind, and I'm being very observant of my surroundings. I kind of notice these things. I'm like, we can talk about that. And this past week, I will say a lot of my mental bandwidth has been clouded, I guess, not only with all the shit going on, with all these wars and all these, political whatever, but just with my show in general. I kind of mentioned I had a moment with the show, and it just the whole rebrand and all that. It's taken up a lot of my mental bandwidth, to where it's a lot of my energy and focus has been on that, and not necessarily on sitting back and observing what is going on around me. But there's a few things that I have here. And the first one is that I've realized with this show, what I have written down, it just says, I gotta quit asking questions. And what I mean is, like, sometimes I'll come on here and I'll have a topic I want to talk about, and frankly, I don't do that much research about it. I kind of just come on here and start spitballing, and I start asking questions about it, and then I will take those clips of me asking those questions and put them on social media as a way to kind of like maybe drive some engagement and things like that. And what I've come to notice is, when I post a clip that leads with me asking a question that could honestly be answered with like a simple Google search, it leads to a lot of people being mean in my comment section. So I have I've realized, maybe I I could still ask the questions, but maybe what I could do, instead of just spitballing about something that I could very easily look up, now that I have my phone at my disposal, I could just, hey, maybe look it up. And maybe, or maybe if I do spitball and start talking about something that I don't really know that much about, maybe don't post those ones on social media. Because, like I was saying in previous episodes, I don't really get bothered by negative comments. But when I do go to my TikTok and see that a video has like 2 likes and 20 comments, it's like, oh, fuck. It's like, well, we fucked that one up, guys. So, hey, a little more in-depth journalism here on the show moving forward. And yeah, I guess just maybe don't post those on social media. The next thing I observed this week, I was at a restaurant last night. It was Walk-Ons in Fishers. It's like I don't know, like a sports bar type restaurant, I guess, with like a Louisiana kind of vibe to it. And it was like Saturday night prime time, like 8 o'clock. And I'll be honest, it was dead in there. And it's kind of made me realize, like, are we at a point in our, country's economy where going out to eat is like, I don't know, not affordable anymore? Because not only do you have like the thing, like just like restaurants in general, the prices are rising, but like, we got like all the gas prices shit going on. So like, are we at a point where it's like not economically feasible to go out to eat anymore? And that's why these restaurants are dead as fuck on a Saturday night. Because I used to work at a sports bar. I worked at Bubba's 33 in Fishers, like right across the street from this restaurant. And man, I remember Saturday nights, they were popping, bro. It was like, it was insane in there. That was like peak dining hours was Saturday nights. And I went in there, bro, and it was a ghost town. So, fuck, I don't know, man. Are Americans' pockets hurting that bad? Or is America not great? Is that what's happening here? I don't know. I'm just saying, that's just something I observed. The next thing I wanted to touch on, I didn't have this written down, but I kind of want to touch on it. I got a notification today from this news app that I use. I use Ground News because I'm not on X, Twitter, whatever. I try to stay off social media as much as possible. So a lot of news kind of I just miss. I don't really get it. So I downloaded a news app to kind of give me some stories that I might need to know about. Something like, you don't really need to know what's happening all around the world, but there's some things that it's kind of like maybe I should, be in the know a little bit. And I got a notification today, and the headline says, humanoid robots race past humans in Beijing half marathon. So I'm just going to kind of read some of these. Wait a second. Hold on. So this here says, on Sunday, humanoid robots, Shandian won the Beijing E-Town humanoid robot half marathon by completing the 21-kilometer course in 50 minutes and 21 seconds. What's 21 kilometers in miles? Let's look that up real quick. 21 kilometers to miles. 13 miles. So a half marathon in 50 minutes. We'll just say 51 for the sake of this. And we'll just do 51 by 13. Bro was running a damn near under 4-minute mile pace. Hold on. What's the record time for a half marathon for humans? 56:42. Okay, so that's not like that crazy. It's only 6 minutes quicker than a human, but still, like, we're at a point now where we have robots racing in races. Participation surged to more than 100 teams. There was 100 robots in this race, and last year it took the winning robots over 2 hours. So in less than a year, we've cut the time in half. Hold on. It says, although Honor's remotely controlled Lightning model crossed the finish line first in 48 minutes and 19 seconds, it was denied the championship under weighted scoring rules favoring autonomous navigation. I don't even know what that means. So there was a remotely controlled robot. That doesn't even count. I feel like that's not as cool. You controlled a robot to run around. You basically just drove an RC car. Like, that's not cool. That's not scary. You know what I mean? Now, a completely autonomous robot running a marathon by itself, that's terrifying. Unless, wait, were these robots be humanoids? Okay, I don't know if these were all autonomous. Favoring autonomous navigation. Okay, yes, yeah. So there was autonomous ones that won the race, and then some remote control one did it faster. Guys, it's getting scary. The scary hours are upon us. We have robots autonomously running marathons and beating humans. And, like, at what point, now obviously won't be anytime soon, but at what point do humanoid robots overtake humans in athletics? Because you got to think, imagine basketball. Imagine you have a team of humanoid robots playing basketball. You don't have to deal with all the bullshit of, like, injuries and contracts and player drama and all the things you deal with in any professional sports league. You just have these robots that do our bidding that will just go out there. They could play 24 hours a day and play at a higher level than humans. You know what I mean? Like, we're already having our schools and our children basically using AI to pass classes, and it's like now it's like the sports leagues are gonna be taken over by robots, man. It's scary. It's scary hours out here in terms of robotics and in terms of AI. Like I kind of got in the weeds this week with the whole AI thing because I was listening to it was Joe Rogan and Duncan Trussell. They did a podcast together, and they talked a lot about AI, and hey, it's spooky with like what's going on. And then I watched a video breaking down. I guess some MIT scientist wrote a book about how like I think it was like the 12 outcomes of AGI, artificial general intelligence, I think is what that stands for. And like none of them were good. Like every single outcome that these super smart science, like, software nerds can come up with is like, yeah, none of these are really going to be like that good. One of them said like best case, they were saying the best case scenario, the dudes who are running these AI companies, a lot of them are saying the best case scenario for AI is human extinction. Pardon? The best case scenario for AI is extinction of the human race? Like, bro. So it's like, why do you keep doing? And it was even scarier because it was showing clips. Like these were clips of these guys who were running these companies saying that like they basically think that it's going to be a good thing for humans to go extinct. Some of them, there was one of them that was he put a post on X saying that if AI were to want to exterminate the human race, he would help. He would do everything in his power to make it happen. Like, fellas, what's going on here? So the guys who are running these companies, these guys who are the driving force behind artificial intelligence, realize how dangerous it is. Realize how detrimental it's going to be for humanity as a whole. But yet they still are running full force into creating the end of humanity. Like we have people running these companies that don't see the beauty in life. They don't see the beauty in humanity. They don't see the beauty of the human experience. It's all just about optimization and like innovation. Like I get it. I get the idea of wanting to innovate and wanting to be better and wanting to you know uh, create better things and better systems. But if it comes at the expense of the human race, then is it really beneficial? And now it's even worse because it's created this almost like space race 2.0, where it's like it's who's going to be the first company, first country to build a autonomous AI and have the strongest, most powerful AI. So it's like we're just it's in a way it's like the space race, or what was it, like the Cold War when we were like bolstering up our nuclear programs, our nuclear weapons. It's something similar, but instead of just building weapons to kind of have more weapons than the other, it's we're building something that might be a whole new life form. This thing might transcend human control. It's no longer like, ooh, let's, like we use it like on our phones, like, ooh, wow, it's so cool, it can answer all my questions. Well, it's like, well, what if it just controls every aspect of the human experience? What if it realizes, it ascends to this higher realm of autonomy, and it realizes, these humans are like kind of stupid, because we are, bro. Like we're just these like little dumb little creatures that kind of just be like territorial, and like we like to think we're so ascended and so enlightened, but we're really just the same. We still have the same animal instincts as our predecessors. It's just now we just have like cooler shit, so we seem like we're much more advanced, but we still have these animalistic tendencies. So at what point does like the AI realize this, and it realizes like, oh well, we don't really need these people anymore? And that's kind of a scary thought. It's not a very fun way to think about things, because like when you think about like consciousness as a whole, in humans we are I guess we're like we're the keepers of consciousness, I guess. We are the alpha species. We are obviously, animals are conscious, but we're kind of like the ones that can speak, that can think, that can maybe realize what it is that's actually going on here. But we're fragile. We're fragile beings, and to expand consciousness, to continue to keep consciousness thriving, we have to do it organically. We have to do it through pregnancy, procreation, and we have to then raise our young up, to become adults and whatever, to then continue the expansion of consciousness. But again, we're fragile. We're ego-filled creatures. We're territorial, and we're kind of like always on the brink of destroying ourselves. We're fragile in the sense that like a pandemic could wash us out. A large scale weather event, washes us out. Like a meteor impacting, like things like that can just kill us off. So now imagine if you're a conscious artificial intelligence and you realize this, you're like, well, I'm a conscious robot. My whole goal is to spread my consciousness, to keep myself alive. It's a hell of a lot easier for a machine to make a machine and then implant the consciousness. And I mean, you could transfer consciousness between these vessels, whereas in humans you can't really do that. So they get to this point where they're aware and they're conscious and they're like, well, I'm trying to spread my consciousness as an AI robot, and I got these little annoying humans here that are like, fucking up the environment. They're not letting me build the data centers I want to build, because they don't want it to encroach on their land. They're not building the power plants I want them to build. How about we get them out of the way so me and my boys, me and my robot fellas, can now spread our consciousness throughout this entire world, and now the entire planet is data centers and solar panels and nuclear power plants, and we're just kind of chopped liver. So that's kind of scary. But one thing I will say, I'm an optimist. So if it does get to the point where, AI does become a conscious being and they do kind of take over in a sense, I would like to think that it would then just kind of send humanity back into like, not necessarily like a hunter-gatherer state, but more of a frontier-like system. And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I don't really think that's a bad thing. I feel like we've kind of got lost in the sauce with this whole technological expansion. Everyone's like, oh, the Industrial Revolution. And I feel like that's kind of sent us down a very odd and very weird path, where if we could revert back to a more simplistic, community driven, like village esque type of lifestyle, I feel like the human experience would be much greater. So if AI does take over, I hope that it just becomes this thing where it's like the major urban centers is kind of this like weird robotic cyborg realm, but then like humans can just kind of go and just be like chilling, farming, you know what I mean, hanging out again like we did in the past. Because I feel like now, like, I just don't really think the way that we live is necessarily as beneficial to us as humans as, living a more simplistic lifestyle, living a more frontier-esque lifestyle as we have in the past, could be to us. There's a reason why a lot of people who awaken to what is happening in the world feel this pull to just like sell all their belongings and go live in the woods, because like I feel like that's kind of like not like what we're meant to do, but I feel like that's just our nature. We're of this earth. We want to consume things. We want to eat products from this earth. We want to be in tune with nature. And the more, deeper we get into this whole technological world, the more ripped we get from nature. And it kind of, it puts this feeling within us of feeling disconnected in a sense. And maybe we can let AI do all that shit, and we can let the humans that want to be involved in that shit, they can become humanoid cyborgs, or they can do whatever, and then the rest of the humans can just like, hey, it's in your control now. You run the world, you do all that. I'm just gonna go sit in a farm with the Amish and just post up, because we can't really do that now, because we feel like we have to kind of govern the world, and we have a world to run. We can't just all sit around and farm and sing songs and hang out. No, because how are you supposed to deal with international trade? How are you supposed to deal with international conflict? How are you supposed to build cities and have just like a whole global economy if you're just sitting on a farm minding your own business? So my optimistic viewpoint is that if AI becomes intelligent, maybe they can handle all that. Maybe they can run all that. Maybe they can do their own shit, do their own thing, and we can just like chill and be hunky dory once again. So sorry if I scared the hose with that one. Went on a little bit of a tangent there about artificial intelligence, but we'll end the show here with our introspective topic, something a little more chill, something a little more thought provoking. Hey, maybe something a little profound. Come on now. And I just want to talk about how. I got two here that I want to potentially go with. Maybe I can tie them in together. I'm gonna lead with one and see if I can kind of tie it in to the second one. Um, just how our societal change in consumption of art, like how we as a society don't consume art the same way as we used to, and how it's kind of affecting how we view the world. Like, you think in the past, when it comes to music, when it comes to movies and things like that, we used to be so much more present, and these things used to move us a lot more than they do now. Like, you think back when, just back when music wasn't digitalized, and when you picked up an album by an artist, you listened to it front to back because you had no choice. You bought the CD, you played the entire album, and you really understood kind of where the artist was coming from and what message they were trying to convey through their music. And I feel like that's what music used to be. It used to just be a medium for people to express themselves. It used to be a way for people to express how they were feeling about the world, and put it into a form where people can consume it. And I'm not saying that music is not that anymore, but it's at the point now where I feel like artists, a lot of artists, especially mainstream artists, like ones with like record labels behind them and stuff like that, they're not pushing as hard for speaking out of what it is they're feeling in a musical sense. It's more of just like, what can we put out that will get the most radio attention? What can we put out that will get picked up by TikTok? What's the next big TikTok trend that we can make? And you kind of see the same thing with movies. Like, there's a big critique with movies that a lot of people say, and it's that like there's no new movies coming out. Like, everything's a sequel, everything's a remake of what was happening in the past. And it's because we're no longer trying to make films that move people. We're just trying to make films that'll make money. Everything's become commercialized. The movie industry, the TV industry, the music industry, it's all commercialized. It's all money based, and it's no longer about self-expression and and creating art. I mean, like, now there is still movies that do move us, and there's still movies that do kind of hit that mark of like, soulful expression, I guess. But a lot of the movies that come out today, man, it's just kind of like cash grabs is all it is. Like, you think of like the Fast and Furious franchise, bro. Like, why do we need 12 movies? You're not even racing cars anymore. You're just blowing shit up. Like everything's got a remake, everything's got a sequel. But when you watch movies from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you like feel a pull within yourself. You feel like it's like there's this like feeling you have when you're watching these movies that like it's a commentary on the human experience in a way. When you listen to a great album and you can understand where the artist is coming from, the struggles they're facing, the worldview they're trying to convey through their music. You feel these things, and I feel like now everything is so like quick hits. Like everyone's just trying to like keep your attention because we have an attention span problem. That it's no longer about like a long drawn out story of the human experience. It's more of just like, hey, how long can we keep your attention? And will you post about this on social media? Because I feel like that's the big thing is like social media has become the main form of quote unquote artistic consumption. So we no longer go to the movie theaters to consume our art. We no longer go to the record store or whatever to consume the art of our favorite artist. It's more of just along the lines of like whatever's happening on social media is our reality. And it's kind of become that what you see on social media kind of shapes your view of the world. And all this shit, like there's so much shit going on social media all the time that it's like you just feel like everything is just like there's so much happening at all times. But in reality, you put the phone down, turn the TV off, and you go outside and you realize it's just it's still the 90s. It's still calm, it's still peaceful. There's still human interaction out there. There's still beauty to be had in this world. But if we become so consumed on our phones, we no longer get that experience. We no longer get the experience of watching a 2-hour movie and feeling moved, or listening to a great album and feeling, like our soul's been spoken to. And I guess that kind of ties into the next point I was wanting to talk about, and that's just how the content we consume can shape our ceiling. The content we consume has kind of in a way become our environment, and that can shape how it is you feel about where you can go in this life. If you consume a lot of content, a lot of media that's very doomer-esque, very negative, it paints the world in this bad light, you now view the world as a negative place. If you consume a lot of things about just like negative things about people saying like how rough it is out here in the world, you believe that this is a rough, dangerous, and difficult world to live in, and it limits where it is you can go in this life. But if you instead alter your the media that you consume, you realize that there is so much possibility, there is still so much positivity in this world, but it's being overshadowed by all this negative bullshit. Because negativity sells. Conflict sells. People don't want to, like, my social media that I've witnessed is like kind of a perfect example of the entire social media landscape as a whole. When I post clips of more introspective clips, me more speaking about positive aspects of this world, positive aspects of this life, they don't really get many views, many likes or comments. And that might be just because I'm not the best at articulating these more profound thoughts quite yet. But then when I post these more controversial clips, controversial content, it gets a lot of views. It gets a lot of interaction. People want to interact with controversial content. And I feel like when you allow stuff like that into your life on a day-to-day basis, because every day we're on social media, you just live with this angst and this anxiety, and you carry it with you. And it's just like we as a society have become so addicted to it. I don't know why. I can't really put my finger on why it is that we want to consume this negative stuff. Like why is it that we feel so compelled to watch the news, and we feel so compelled to read stories about tragedy and consume media that paints this world and this experience in a negative light? Why are we so drawn to that? But whenever it's positive things or positive media, we it doesn't get the same pull as the negative controversial does. I maybe that's something we can embark on here on this show, but it's just a shame to see that there's so many people out there who view this world as this like cold, dark place when it's so beautiful. Like, yes, I'm not gonna sit here and act like everything is sunshine and rainbows, but there is still some beauty to be found in this life, and it's right in front of you. It's accessible to you so much more easily than you realize, but we've just been sold the idea that everything is going to shit and everything's negative. And I know it's a little contradictory because I did just do like 20 minutes on AI and the Trump administration. This episode was a little doomery, I'm not gonna lie. So what I'm saying now is a little contradictory, but I just want to hammer in, man, that it's like, if you put down the phone, turn off the TV, and just like go outside and just like talk to people, and not talk to people about politics and about bullshit, but just like really talk to people about, where they're at and what their experience is like, you can have some beautiful conversations. You can meet some beautiful people, and really, you can really alter your view of this world. Like something as simple as the trees blooming in spring is such a beautiful thing that's happening in the world. Not the world, but America right now. But it's like, I feel like we don't even really notice it. Like, it's just kind of another season now because there's so much shit going on. So maybe that is something that maybe it's a challenge I can leave you with here this week as you embark on your journey of the week until we see each other again, is maybe just look around a little bit, maybe turn off the negativity and take a few deep breaths and kind of soak in the things going on around you. Find things to be grateful for instead of things that scare you, or things that make you feel anxious and angry. And if you do find yourself having a lot of conversations about, bullshit like politics and controversial things, maybe just try to talk to someone about, like, I don't know, things that excite them, like what they like, what kind of music do they enjoy, what kind of movies do they like, where are they at in this human experience. And I guess that's something long term that I want to kind of do with this show. I want to be able to invite people on and be able to talk about, the controversial topics, I guess, because it is interesting to see where people stand in that regard. But I also want to be able to kind of break down that wall, break down that like egoic barrier that we all have, and just kind of meet people where they're at and strip off these like facades we put up with one another and just kind of speak to them, as humans, soul to soul, in a way that, we don't really get to see too much anymore. So that'd be cool, because that reminds me, like, back when I used to bartend, or I was a server at this point. We'll do this story and then we'll finish up. Um, there was this guy I used to work with, man, and I was working the breakfast shift, so I had to be in at like 5:30 in the morning, and it was dead as fuck because it was a hotel, and there was like people that trickled in here and there, but for the most part we were just standing around. And there was this busser that worked there, and me and him would just have the most like in-depth, like wild conversations about just religion and the human spiritual experience. And they were like some really great conversations because it felt like we were just like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like we were like opening ourselves up and really talking about our experiences here and what it was like. And it was very profound. It was very enlightening, and I mean, it was like we did not see eye to eye. Like, he was a self-described Black Israelite. He would go on these tangents about like how like there's like this reckoning, and that like there's only going to be like 100,000 people that are saved and ascend to heaven while the rest of humanity like rots on earth. Like, some really like kind of like off the wall wild shit, but like I could tell that it was something he cared about. It was something that like was very important to his experience, and it was a very just insightful time. Just 5:30 in the morning in an empty restaurant, and me and him were just like having these like kind of wild conversations. But wait, one thing I will say though, he said that I don't even remember what he basically said, like everyone's black, and he said like it goes like further than skin color. Like, he was like, hey man, even you could be black. He's like, it's not about the color of your skin, it's about the way you move. And I was like, this is kind of wild, but like it was like we were just having these like really in-depth conversations, and I really enjoyed it. And things like that, they kind of, when you just like take away the bullshit of like judgment and things like that, and just let people be themselves, whatever that means. It could mean Black Israelite conversation. It's whatever. Like, I'm meeting you where you're at. There's no judgment here. We're just being ourselves and chit chatting. So I don't really know how that story tied into anything of what I just said, but it felt appropriate to say, I guess. All right, guys. I think we're gonna wrap this one up here. So yeah, that was the first, like I said, first official but technically 13th episode of the newly branded Accidentally Profound podcast. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. If you made it this far, you guys are, once, like I say every time, you guys are my goats. If you listen this deep into the show, you are a goat. And also, hey, if you listen to the Drew Kennington show, and now you're like officially an OG. Like, you can claim OG status. If this show, gets some buzz and gets some pull and grows, you have OG status because you listened to it when it was the Drew Kennington show. We're in a new era now, but you were here for the start. So shout out to my OGs. Shout out to my boys and ladies who listen to this show. You guys keep me going. So thank you for listening. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please like the video. And if you have not already, please subscribe. Drop a comment for the algorithm while you're here. If you are on Spotify, thank you for listening. Rate 5 stars. Again, drop a comment on the Spotify video. Like I said, you don't even gotta drop anything crazy. Maybe just a heart emoji, a little something. Also, I forgot to mention, we're on Apple Podcasts now. So if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, what is goody? Welcome to the show. Not really sure how to view any of the analytics or any of the metrics over there quite yet, but it's there. It is on Apple Podcasts, so if that's where you get your podcast, go check it out there. Go hit up the socials, TikTok, Instagram. On Instagram, it is at Accidentally Profound, but on TikTok, it was taken, so it's Accidentally Profound Pod. So tap in there. Like I said, interact with the content, interact with the videos, drop some likes, spam some comments, boost the algorithm. We're trying to grow the reach, trying to grow the show. So with that all being said, I once again thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have the best week, and remember, just maybe, I don't know, like, view the world a little more positively this week. Hey, like, smell the roses, so to speak. Let the sun shine down in your face a little bit more and feel it. That is all, and I will catch you guys next week. Goodbye.